Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session. Today we're going to be doing a demo of Social Studio, which I'm really excited about because it's a great tool to capture exactly what's going on online, and it's kind of a summary of the Earth. So let's dive in. So our agenda today is we're doing an introduction first, very quickly, then we'll go straight into Social Studio and do live listening. And what we're going to listen for today is we're going to look at the global since March the 1st, which is as far back as we've got in terms of that listening. Then we're going to zoom in and look at last 7 days. So since the last webinar I ran, so I'm running these every week. So we're going to look at the last 7 days and just have a look and see what's happened. And then we're going to zoom into Australia and see what's happening in Australia. Tomorrow's webinar, tomorrow afternoon, we've got a Philippines focused webinar. So we'll be covering Philippines then. Great, and then finally we'll talk about how to actually listen, like what's the strategy in your business to actually do this, like what should you be doing? And then there's time for questions at the end, which I'll promise I'll make time for. My name is Robin, for those that don't know me. I'm the CEO and co-founder of AF Digital. We're a Salesforce Gold consulting partner. Personally, I'm 6 times Salesforce certified. I'm currently working on my nonprofit cloud consultant cert and education cloud as well. So that's really exciting. My background prior to doing the business, I was a BA, a business analyst with IBM and also with Vodafone. Also a bit of an agile PM, a little bit. And really early days of the business, we actually started out as a specialist, really focused on social, because that was the first part of Marketing Cloud. So this is actually a photo of me talking to a large media organization in the Philippines and demonstrating how they could leverage the power of social listening to really understand what the response is from the audience. If anyone wants to follow me, Robin_AFD on Twitter and Instagram. So AF Digital is my business. We're a Salesforce advisory board partner. So we meet once a year in the US and we get exposed to the future of Marketing Cloud, but we also have the opportunity to give feedback. It's a real honor to be on this board. We sit alongside 11 other partners like Deloitte, Publicis, etc. And the business in one page, we're a gold consulting partner. We're a .org registered partner. So that's really the nonprofit and education space. We're a multi-cloud partner as well across sales, service, marketing, community. And then we've also got a lot of ISV partnerships as well. So these kind of fill in the gaps around Salesforce when you really need it to do something specific. Our value prop is really advisory, so that advice and making sure you have the right guidance. Then we also do transformation projects. So we rapidly help you implement sales, service, marketing, community cloud. And then we have a managed service program called TeamX, which is a hybrid between marketing and technology services. Great, and one of the first clients we had as we started out our journey as like really focused on social listening, we worked with Meralco, which is the leading energy provider in the Philippines. These guys power the nation, and they also have a lot of typhoons that affect their operations and ability to deliver power. So we leveraged the power of Social Studio. Back then it was Radian 6, and this allowed them to really get a handle on what was going on in each of those crises, whether it was a small pocket of negative sentiment that they may have otherwise not detected, versus a large scale, many people affected by neutral sentiment. We also helped them set up a crisis dark site, which was a place where they could go, kind of like a community where they could send people, high volumes of people during a crisis with FAQs and things like that. So this is, yeah, really exciting client, and these guys are still leading the way in terms of how they leverage the power of social and the internet to help their customers. Great, so let's jump into some live listening. I will change my screen across, so you should be seeing Social Studio now. So I'm just going to step back a little bit. This is Social Studio, ladies and gentlemen. So this is where we manage our own AF Digital marketing, but I have set up a COVID-19 specific workspace just for this purpose. And so we're not going to go across everything. It's got all of the things you'd need from a social media management tool, publishing, engagement, and analytics. So this is where we do our publishing. You can see here our calendar, and similar to Engage. Happy Tuesday, everyone. It's dialed in. So Engage just really allows you to manage all of your channels in one place. It means you don't have to log into multiple places. You can also tag stuff as well. You can see here, here's a few tags like Jet. Jet, shout out to Jet, is our lead designer. He's been with the business for many years, actually, maybe coming up to 4 years. Jet, I love Jet. He's got such a great eye for design, and he's helped me personally with many of our designs. You know, we've worked closely together. Anyway, little side shout out. So this also allows me to engage with mentions that are off my pages. So you can see here, I mean, these are mostly actually picking up our messages because we talk a lot. But you've got things where, say, this third party has retweeted us, and that's picked up. Karen, oh, there we go. Yeah, so I mean, it's really listening to us. But assuming that people outside of us were talking about AF Digital, I could then engage. I can also engage on things like this. Yeah, so anyway, this is a great place if you've got a lot of volume. Like for AF Digital, we're like pretty happy in terms of our business. Like there's no major drama. But say if we had a major drama, this is where you can manage that volume and scale. And if I had problems that I need to escalate, I could create a case or create a lead if it's a sales opportunity in Salesforce from here. So this is kind of the power of this tool. It's pretty rad. It's got everything. And it's evolving constantly. Like this is always getting better. But I'm not here to talk about engagement or publishing. What I am here to talk about is the analyze side, because what we really want to do is listen in. This is like a once in a lifetime opportunity to listen in to what the internet is saying about this crazy, crazy phenomena. That's correct. So, all right, so these are my dashboards I've got set up. I'm going to show you workbenches as well, because that's also very interesting. Let's jump in and just show you the world. So this is, oh, I've actually got one preloaded because this may take a little while. So guys, this is a much larger data set than Social Studio normally has. Like you never need this much data. We're talking about almost 1 billion mentions that have come up since March 1st and now. So if there's any delay in this demo, it's not really a realistic test scenario. This is a very extreme set of data. And I'm going to show you why that is the case. So 791 million mentions in the last, it's really like 21st is 1 week, so 7 weeks since March 1st. I'm actually going to take an action. You can extend, so for anyone that is a Social Studio customer, you can request that Salesforce extend back, they reverse back your topic profile, historical data, and I don't know what the exact amount is, but it's a few years at the moment. So this means that technically I can get them to go backwards. So to do that, you just need to log a case in your Salesforce community, or send them an email or call them. And that way you can get this extended. So I'll do that for the next call. Let's have a look at the further back. Yeah, that's a good one. All right, so without further delay, let's talk through this. So Twitter. So again, for those that aren't on the previous calls, if you're not on Twitter as a business, you really have to be. There's a lot of talk on Twitter that's publicly available, and it's like a big opportunity. And you can choose to deny it or ignore it, but it's still there. So if people are there talking about your brand, you can choose to say it's not cool for me as a marketer. I don't like using Twitter personally, but other people do like using it, and it's publicly accessible. So not only does it impact your reputation if people are bad mouthing you, but it also is an opportunity to help those unhappy customers out. And the way I think about it is, say if you've got a village of people, you probably, out of the 100 people in the village, you probably have maybe 15. I don't actually know. It's a good question, but you'd have a subset of people that are on Twitter. And so they kind of share the overall perception. They're kind of like the Twitter voice of the other 85 people. They're like, yeah, man, this sucks. Yeah, man, I don't like our village leader. He's a dick. Excuse me, I shouldn't swear. So that's the thing is like this is kind of like this is the voice of the people. But if you choose to ignore it, you're ignoring the voice of the people that's available, and you're saying, well, I only care about Facebook. So Facebook is largely blocked from social listening tools generally. There's if there's ways of doing it, it's kind of illegal, but legally there's very limited information you can get. So kind of have to forget about Facebook. Instagram is tied to Facebook, so because it's owned by the same people, so they also have limited access. So there's a few kind of little nuances of the social media ecosystem. But what we have got is a huge volume of rich, beautiful data that represents those 15 people in the village. YouTube, forums, blogs, a little bit of Facebook, aggregator, mainstream news, and you can see they've all kind of been growing dramatically. 791 is a massive number. So let's talk through and explain why it's so big. So if we compare it to Apple, Apple is the orange, Google is green, and I actually added last time Coca-Cola, it's a lot lower, as a little brown. So if I take out coronavirus, COVID-19, Apple versus Google, so Apple's 61%, Google 34, and Coke is 4.9. So you can see that it's quite a big difference, and that's in the last 7 weeks. That's mentions of Apple, and including the fruit as well. So this really kind of goes to show us that uh, COVID-19 is a massive thing. It's much bigger than a typical brand scenario where you'd be listening for Apple. Like the biggest brand you'd ever listen for is Apple or Google. You know what I mean? So going back to the numbers, these are extraordinary numbers. If we look at the top words, these are the top 50 keywords. I'm just going to filter it by influencer score. A little trick for those who don't know, filtering by influencer score just kind of shows the most important things that are like retweeted a lot, etc. are usually at the top. Good for a quick dive. All right, so already it's we're putting it to the test a little bit. Oh, here we go. Okay, great. So what have we got here? These are the top 50 words said in the last 7 weeks on social media. This is a summary of the world and how they feel about COVID-19. So um, yeah, wow. Coronavirus, spread outbreak, pandemic, lockdown, South Trump, he's quite big in there. Virus, COVID, Maryland, death, president, pandemia. It's an interesting word. Deaths, news, immigration. Why would immigration be part of this conversation? Is an interesting question. So I might just give that a little while to load. And let's just keep looking through. We've got Trump, obviously. Trump is featured heavily through all of these social listening things. Cases, that's quite a big word. You get things like Maryland, and that's what worries me is you'd probably have an outbreak in Maryland that might be a concern. So, okay, maybe I'm not going to wait for this. I might just jump back out because it'll be a little bit faster once we zoom in on a smaller data set. But we can see here there's those words. If we look at the key topics discussed, so the way we've broken them down, and let's just in this screen, I'm just going to jump across into the admin backend and show you quickly how the keywords are set up. So we can see here that we've got these keywords. So the biggest is hospital, and then Trump. Wow, Trump is he's dominating. Death, testing, face masks, quarantine, education. Okay, so let's go into the topic profile. So we're going into the admin and the back end right now. It's very easy to do this. You just need to know what you're doing. And we are going to look for Corona. Okay. Great. So this is the one I want to look at. So this is the topic profile I'm using for kind of general analysis with keyword groups. So I've got things like I'll get a not death face masks. So I'm okay, no, not this one. Um, Education. Okay, great. So what we're listening in for is keywords like education, kindergarten, professor, school, students, teacher, university, and coronavirus, COVID-19. So we're just trying to do a match to make sure that we've got all of the relevant social media posts grouped together so that we can start measuring them. So this means that we can measure how many mentions of retail posts were there related to COVID-19. This becomes a metric. This becomes a number we can measure. So just like that, I can measure anything. I can measure the number of times quarantine is talked about or how many times people are recovered, right? This is an interesting one. Recovery, corona. So recovered and corona, excluding alcohol beer. You don't want to get someone that's recovered from drinking or someone that's had too many coronas. So yeah, so this is how we set up the analysis in the back end, and you constantly optimize this as you use it more. All right, so back to the analysis. So looking at these keyword groups, top keywords discussed, let's just jump in. So hospital is the number one. And again, if we look at influencer score, we can kind of get a view of what's being said. This is, again, a very big data set, so we can't expect it to be too fast. Trump, death, where's recovered? Recovered, not there. Let's just see if I've got them all selected. Okay, sick, recovered is a little brown. Retail, job loss, self-isolation, Duterte, he's the president of the Philippines, I'll take him out. E-commerce, okay. And I've got a hypothesis around e-commerce. I'm just measuring whether there's an increase in people talking about e-commerce, yet to be determined. But eventually we'll have all of this beautiful data. Like this is a footprint, like this is historical, like this doesn't change, this happened, it's in the memory of the system. So if we look at the overall crisis sentiment of Corona as a brand, if we were thinking about COVID-19 as a brand, there's this much 27% positive sentiment associated, 43.8% negative. So it's quite a high negative. I've got Apple and Google down here at the bottom. So again, if we look back at Apple and Google in this chart, we've also got them in the data set. So let's look down and see what people say about them in comparison. So we have a reference point. So we can see here that Apple, people are 32% positive about it, which is more positive. Okay, so more positive about Apple than Corona, that's good. 30.4% for Google. So yeah, so both brands slightly less positive. Okay, and then in terms of negative, you can see it's quite a lot more negative. It's 43 versus 13.8. Yeah, so very interesting. These numbers are shifting actually. This is different to what it was before. There's a lot more negative. I would say from memory it was about 40% last time I checked. So, okay, so this is the macro view. This is the overall world. And again, we've got the same view where we've got the COVID-19 virus that peaked on March 13th. And then it had a follow-up peak on March 17th, 18th. And then it's kind of, you can see here, there's a bit of a trend, actually. This is very interesting. This is Sunday, Monday, Sunday, 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 Sunday. It's always a lull. It peaks Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, Monday. Everyone like starts the week, gets on Twitter, what, I'm unhappy, what's going on. And then by Sunday, everyone's a bit chill. It's very interesting that there's a cycle in volume. There's obviously a pattern there. And this is macro. This is across millions of people. Okay, these are the individual keyword groups. So when we said testing before as a thing, This is how it's trending. So it again had March 13th as a spike. You've got things like hospital, which spiked about 2 weeks later. March, what is this? March. Whoa, whoops, sorry. I should probably go in here. It's probably more detailed. March 13th versus March 20th. 10 days later, hospital spiked. But it's been dropping ever since. Let's take out testing in hospitals. Okay, pink is education. The dark is brown is quarantine. So on Tuesday, Monday, let's take out education. Friday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday. Yeah, so there's maybe a pattern there. So yeah, it's very interesting that you can kind of view everything in a very macro perspective. I think the good news, if we kind of look at the corona overall topic, it is declining, right? That is a definite linear decline, right? I mean, there's no hiding that fact. So uh, it would be interesting to see what the rate of cases were, what the rate of deaths were in relation to the social media volume. That would be a very interesting comparison. Maybe another time. So let's go out of this and let's look at the last 7 days. So while it's been declining, it's not, we can't just take our foot off the gas. We need to really look in. So this is global over the last 7 days, 78 million. So that's quite a lot. However, it's down 11% from the previous 7 days. So that's very interesting. Mainstream news is up, whereas everything else is down. That's also interesting. Yeah, very interesting. So this is pretty much the same dashboard. Again, the Google Apple comparison. These are the last 7 days worth of mentions. So 78 million, by the way, it's still a huge amount. So let's see how quickly this goes. Okay. I'm just going to shift this to influencer score and have a bit of tea. So for those that haven't listened before, this is untested. Like we're all looking at this live, like this live data. Anything could come up. So this is the last 7 days globally of the top 50 keywords mentioned. President 000, which is obviously like emergency. Korea. Maryland is there as well. Maryland must not be in a good position. Immigration there again. Okay, so let's have a look at immigration, see if we can answer a question from before. China, order. Okay, coronavirus, Donald Trump signs order to temporarily suspend immigration. Okay, that's what it's talking about. Immigration is being suspended. Okay. Saying he was doing so to protect American jobs as the coronavirus has taken a sharp toll on economy. Interesting. So that's 10 minutes ago. Wow. So 10 minutes ago, and it's already this big on top 50 keywords. This is probably, we're probably going to see this one in our further analysis. Let's keep going. What else have we got? Pandemic order. Okay, that's possibly relating to the same thing. Death tests. Gov. Hospital. White. White. What is white? India. Twitter response. Yeah, so yeah, it's very interesting. So again, top 50 keywords over the last 7 days, and this is out of 70, I think 9 million posts. So it's a phenomenal volume of data over the last 7 days. I'm not having much success. I could wait around. That would take a not much longer. But let's just, for the interest of your viewing time, let's focus in on the keywords. So these are again the same keywords. So death, Trump, hospital, face mask, testing, education, recovered. Let's see what else is in there. Okay, quarantine, sick, job loss, corona, retail, self-isolation, E-commerce. Okay, let's see what the Globe says is, so overall 10 million a day. Can you see that? That's amazing. Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So it's kind of dropping like 10 million last Wednesday, 9.8, 10 million, 9.5, 9.34, 8.65 million in a day. Seven. So wow. So it is dropping. Like you can see, it's consistently dropping day by day, consistent with the global drop. So I think that's good to see on a micro level. It's dropping. If we look at the different topics, hospital, it's kind of dropping there. There's no interesting spikes, like nothing jumps out at me. Maybe because it's so macro, it's like 101,000 for education, which was on Monday. It's Tuesday today. So this is yesterday. 101,000 people talked about education around the world. The day before on Sunday, 81,000 people. So maybe that's a sign of people going back to school, being off. I bet if you went back out macro, you'd probably see education dips on the weekends. It's pretty interesting. What else is there? See if we can get a deeper insight. The other thing with these spikes is the more you unearth them, like you see how if I have coronavirus, like the high level thing, if I have that in, nothing seems important. But if I take that out, I'm taking away the noise. And then I'm like, well, it still doesn't seem that important. Let's take out testing. Testing takes away a lot of scale of the graph. So for those statisticians, it reduces this part and brings everything up. So this allows me to see there's a spike. Okay, that was more obvious to see that. Whoops, accidentally clicked in. We've got job losses here on a Friday. So that's an interesting spike that was building Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then it spiked. You could probably, that's worthy of a bit of a drill in to see what's going on here. You've also got self-isolation that spiked on a Wednesday. So if you're a content provider, Wednesdays are good for self-isolation, maybe. ISO, hashtag ISO. Okay, so what have we got here? This is, where were we? April 17th, job loss. Brazilian president fired his health minister after clashing with him over how to fight the new coronavirus. Okay. 90s Taiwanese singer Jerry Low, who has had no income. Okay. No income. Okay, he's a Taiwanese singer, is out of his job. Why doesn't he do it online? Brazilian president fired his health. Okay, there we go. China's role comes as the world wrestles with the coronavirus crisis that killed and created historic jobless numbers. Okay, so it's keywords like jobless that is picking up. US deaths, 35 job losses. Brazil's, okay, again, turns out professional gamblers may be able to collect unemployment benefits. There you go. 4 days ago, ladies and gentlemen, if you're a professional gambler, there is something for you. That's probably in a specific country, probably in the US. So anything that you want to kind of drill in for, we can very easily go in and have a look at the actual post. Check out the author. This is quite an official post. So Market Watch, 3.7 million followers. Wow, so quite influential. So that's what I mean. Like these are the ones, and these guys get retweeted a lot with their posts. So okay, let's jump out. All right, move on. I could spend a lot of time just going through this. If we look at the last 7 days, has the sentiment improved over the last 7 weeks? No, it's about 43%. Positive 27. Yeah, it was about the same. So what about Apple and Google? Did they get? Yeah, it's about the same. So yeah, cool. Very exciting last 7 days. Let's jump in now to Australia. And I just closed the window by accident. So I'm just going to navigate there. And we want to go to COVID-19 AU full. So this is last 7 weeks of coronavirus mentions in Australia. So this is zoomed into the country to see what they're saying. And yeah, this is why I preloaded it. There we go. 4.3 million in Australia alone, 4.2 million on Twitter. Yeah, quite interesting. Share of voice. This is just against Apple and Google. Top words discussed. We'll just give these guys a moment to load. We've got an interesting sentiment trend here. So, oh, okay, this is for testing. Okay, here we are. It's coming. Okay, great. Here's the key topics discussed. So Australia, number 1 is death. Wow, grim. Number 2, hospital. Number 3, Trump. He lists highly in what we talk about. Testing, Apple, education. Apple's not supposed to be there. Sorry, let me take that out. Apple and Google. Okay, what else have we got? Corona, sick, face mask, recovered, retail, self-isolation, job loss, and e-commerce. Okay, cool. There's quite a lot of diversity there. So, okay, death, hospital, Trump, testing, education, quarantine, sick, face mask, recovered. Okay, so that's overall. If we look into the this is the last 7 weeks again, and again we've got this March 13th and the little spike, and then it looks like Australia follows a similar pattern to the world in terms of our volume. Great. So taking coronavirus out, the overall keyword group, testing. So this is quite interesting. I might just kind of filter this down a little bit. We've got the green ones. This is hospital, and the orange one is death. So let's take away hospital, and you can see here death is quite a consistent. Out of all of the lines, it's grown and it's consistent. If we were to take out Trump, take out education, take out quarantine. Actually, so quarantine's there. Okay, interesting. So interesting to see how these relate. I'm just looking at the comparison between sick and death. You can see here it was the same volume at one point, and then death is now the bigger topic than being sick is. Face masks have increased as the topic. That's interesting. So while globally we saw a lot of things decrease, it looked like everything was decreased. It's not all roses on the ground, potentially. I'm just looking at the numbers, and these are macro numbers as well. Like when you get into the detail, there's a lot of things that make up these numbers, a lot of different spikes. Job losses. Let's take out testing. Okay, that's a bit better. Sick, death. Okay, let's take out death. All right, so we've got sick. Okay, let's take out sick. What are we left with? Job loss. So we see a job loss spikes. This is again 7 weeks. So spiked on 26th of March. However, we've got a recent spike on, and we'll cover this actually when we go to the last 7 days. So let me come back to that. If we look at the sentiment over time, that's pretty expected. Take away positive. This is a negative sentiment. So it's going to be interesting to see why there's an increase over the last 7 days. So we're going to get to 7 days next. Okay, this is looking at the different topics like testing. These are the big ones, 182K. And these are some of the keywords talked about with testing. So detained, failing, racially, some pretty serious keywords here. Henderson homes, like an aged care home maybe. Australia hospital, really crazy keywords. Detained. This is the thing. I see this, and there's now criminal convictions being applied where people haven't like taking protection of other people's health, when they've been reckless. So this guy, black doctor in Miami, a hero has been testing the homeless, was racially profiled and detained. Oh, there you go. Okay, it's a lot about him. Yeah, so yeah, anyway, I don't want to drill too far in. I want to show you a bit of everything and give you a chance to ask some questions. So let's jump out and let's go into the 7-day. All right, so I've got that already prepared here. Okay, great. 7 days. This is the last 7 days of Australia. So since the last time I did this webinar, 7 days ago, there's 473 new posts that have come in Australia alone, mostly on Twitter. Yeah, share a voice. Okay, let's look at the key topics discussed. Okay, is there anything interesting in here? Let me take out some of the things I shouldn't have and add in education, recovery, quarantine, sick, job loss, retail, self-isolation, e-commerce. Yep, okay, cool. Great. So we've got death as the #1 topic in the last 7 days in Australia. And you could almost feel it from that last graph that we looked at. So hospital is next, Trump is next. Maybe let's take Trump out of the equation. Okay, testing. So this is hospital, testing, face mask, education. Okay, great. So share of voice trend. So this is the same except over time. So we've got obviously the overall mentions. We've got a little spike on April 20th, and then we dive in, and these are the keyword groups we talked about. So hospital has a little spike. That's probably the cause of that spike is hospital. I do want to drill in and just find out what's going on. Self-isolation is the future. There we go. Okay, doctors. Okay, died. So this is hospitals. G, healthcare and Microsoft partner to help hospitals fight COVID-19. A Victorian doctor has been verbally abused in yet another sickening racial attack amid coronavirus pandemic. There's a lot of bad behavior going on, people. A beautiful mural has been painted in Melbourne's southeast, a tribute to our healthcare workers. The pieces, oh, this is nice. Super nice. That's very cool. So yeah, cool. That's a great bit of content. So let's take out hospital and testing. Testing is on downward decline in terms of mentions. April 20th on Monday, it kind of picked up a bit. So let's just take that out. Education, what has gone up? So quarantine has gone up. Sick went up. Job loss has gone up. Let's have a look at job loss. Why has that gone up in Australia on Monday? I'm trapped. The UAE migrant workers left stranded by COVID-19 losses. Okay, so that's not in Australia, but it's tweeted by an Australian brand. Shocking new economic modelling has warned we could reach more than 20% unemployment. This is in Australia. So yeah, it's not good news. There's a lot of people impacted. Coming up at 8:15, we speak to the Grattans about latest report. It's just 14 and 26% of Aussie workers could find themselves unemployed. Government is facing a new prediction that 3.4 million Australians. It's kind of the same message. It's just how you frame it. So that's why that one has come up after it was pretty low actually, and then yeah, if we look into say April 16th, this was the last spike. April, it's a little bit lower, April 14th, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So this is on the Friday. What were people saying? 5.2 million people filed, that's in the US. Restrictions aimed at halting the spread of coronavirus could be eased next month as Prime Minister Scott Morrison prepares to ditch election promises. Bureau of Statistics has reported 20,000 people lost work. Retail, so despite closures and losses, experts say Australia's retail sector will survive the coronavirus crisis, but laid off shop assistants could be offered very different roles because many stores will now go online. Oh, many stores now going online will elect to stay online. That's very interesting. And I think this is a whole new future. There's going to be new jobs created out of this. Since the outbreak of coronavirus, thousands of actors, writers, directors, crew, and music composers have faced indefinite unemployment, but there is a way out. Uh, our unemployment rate rose to 5.2% in March, according to newly released job figures. So right now it's 5.2% is our unemployment. I wonder what the standard unemployment is. I don't know. So that's that job loss in the blue. Let's see if there's something about these underlying ones. Self-ISO, retail. Let's take out retail and e-commerce. Okay. Yeah, so that's the last 7 days. It's quite interesting. If we look at the sentiment, oh, scathing, Australia, scathing. 49.1% of all of this is negative. Pretty much out of these last 7 days, it's half of our posts are negative about coronavirus in Australia. That's more negative than all of the other countries combined. We're more negative. It would be interesting to see what the comparison, like who's the most negative country. That's a very good question. I could probably find that out. Yeah, so just having a look in testing. So these are what's being said about testing in Australia, isolation, immune, negative. There's a lot being said about immune. I mean, I haven't been probably following it as closely as I could be. But oh, okay, this is saying about your immune system being low. Yeah, I'm just curious because I've heard people say that um, you can't build immunity, but then I've heard other people say that that they're waiting for the people on the ships to build immunity. So I don't know what the answer is, to be honest. It's not funny. I'm not laughing. It's just confusing. Uh, I find that a bit crazy, leaving them on the ships, to be honest. That's my personal opinion. So, okay, here we go. Here we go. So let's jump back out. And what I do want to look at is we can look at a 48 hour, but what I want to do is maybe let's jump into a workbench and let's have a look. So, and let's just build out a workbench um, of the world and see what it says. So I'm just going to start from scratch to show you how easy it is. I've got my master Corona topic profile here. You can see that's 448 million mentions in the last 30 days. So it's a big one. COVID-19 7-week. Okay, let me analysis. So keyword groups are great because, sorry, not keyword groups, workbenches are great because it's like a tool that you can then start to do your analysis on. So I'm going to go back. I need to unlock this topic profile actually. That would be very useful. But I'm just going to do the last 7 weeks of analysis. All right, so right now I'm pulling in this big data set. This is going to be over 700 million mentions. So we can't expect it to ask too much. But what we're gonna, oh, there we go, done, just like that. So easy. So if I wanted, I could filter this data set, but I'm not going to. So I'm just gonna use the full thing. Let's have a look at the usuals. So I want to see about age. See what is this age demographic that's made up all of these posts? What's the gender? You can also see the location, and this is not using the location from the provider. This is which often doesn't give a location, or it's set manually, so it's not actually true. So location is more of an insights feature where it kind of thinks, oh, I think he's in Sydney based on like whatever. I don't know exactly. Um, let's look by country by segment, country by trend as well. Um, okay, and what else are we looking for? Top hashtags. I like looking at the top hashtags. Okay, and we're going to look for keyword groups by trend. I also want to do keyword groups by, oh, I'm pushing it to the limit, keyword groups by trend line as well. Yeah, so this is what the original product Radiant 6 used to be really good at this stuff. It was like you would kind of more clunky. You would go and drill into keyword groups, and then you'd be like, "Oh, tell me this," and then off that, tell me that. So this is what this does now, but it's way easier than it used to be. It used to be so much harder to actually use it. You had to be quite a skilled operator to use Radiant 6, whereas this is very simple. Like you can see, I've just done a few clicks. There's no code, there's no breaking it. Uh, Pretty much just works. Even if you throw almost a billion mentions through it, no brand ever has this many. So it's a good example of how powerful it is. Okay, so we've got countries. Let's look into the okay, here we are, the countries. So right at the top is unknown. So these are where we don't have data from the social media platform. US, India, UK. So UK has actually dropped. Last time we did this call, it was I think US, UK, and then India, Spain. So that's interesting. Spain, Brazil, France with 1.7%. So I mean that's a lot. US has 30.7%, and then the next down is India with 3.3, and then UK. So it's kind of small numbers here when you think US has almost a third of all mentions on social media and online about COVID-19. Unknown has another third. Um, great. So just scrolling down, Thailand, 0.7%, Australia, 0.6%. So this is the reason I'm happy is because last time this was 1%, I think. It was about 1%. So Australia's share of the countries talking about COVID-19 is actually reduced. Although, yeah, this is compared to last, yeah, anyway. Philippines at 0.4, it's not too bad. China 0.3, so that's posts originating in China. Singapore, New Zealand down the bottom, hopefully not too bad. Yeah, so it's interesting. You can also see some of the trends here as well. If I take out UK and US, I can see the trends for the other countries. And then let me just zoom into this. Yeah, so forget the data before this. It's because I wasn't tracking it prior, so it kind of added the meta tags only on this date. But you can see here you've got India that's kind of got this trend, UK, Spain, similar kind of pattern in each country. A little spike here with Brazil, whereas everyone else followed a similar path. Brazil had a little spike, out of the ordinary spike. What was that, Brazil? It's quite interesting how they follow a very similar curve, all of the countries. And then there's Brazil. Everyone had a bit of a low on the Monday, and then yeah, it's very interesting. So okay, again, this is a big data set. I may just not answer that question. Okay, cool. So out of this hashtags, so you can see here COVID-19, hashtag COVID-19, hashtag coronavirus, hashtag COVID hyphen 19, hashtag COVID underscore 19, hashtag COVID, hashtag stay home, and then a few other keywords. Hashtag Corona down there. COVID-19 MX, Mexico, I guess. Lockdown, dedication, no, dedication at stay, at work, safety at home. Cuba, Trump, China, hashtag MAGA, hashtag India fights Corona. Interesting. So keyword groups. Okay, we haven't got that on this one. Whoops. Delete. Okay, great. So maybe on this, let's just have a look in and see what we can find about, say, one of these hashtags, stay at home. Stay at home seems to be a fairly popular hashtag. Let's see what the sentiment over time is doing about that. What I might do as well, actually, so Brazil. So you got me thinking Brazil. What I might do is zoom into Brazil and where's Brazil? Okay, here we go. What I can do is to answer my question in a faster way, I can actually zoom in and see what was the uh, sentiment over time. That will probably help me answer that. I could also find out with the keywords, the top words, what was said. Yeah, so this is kind of the benefit of this tool is it's really good for analysis. I can now drill in and get a really good understanding of what's the cause of these spikes. Okay, while that's loading, I'll come back to you. Okay, we've got sentiment down here loading. Okay, just bear with us a second. So feel free to ask any questions if there's anything you want to look at. Oh, we've got Irene. How accurate is the sentiment model? Did you have to train it? So no, I haven't trained it for this use case. I would say it varies by country and it varies by language. So I'd say indicatively, it's probably like 75 to 85 to 90% maybe accurate with English. However, that being said, there's some countries with English that just use it quite differently, and that'd be a lot harder to pick up. So you'd maybe have more accuracy in the US English than in say I can't think of a different in British English. I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to say. But yeah, so 75 to 85% would be a kind of good guesstimate. Okay, that's spiked just then. Okay, so we've got this. Yeah, sorry. It's only, I think, just for this, it needs a bit of time to register the sentiment. So I don't have the historical sentiment on Brazil, so I can't really use that. But what I can use is the top 50 keywords. So yeah, so what I would do though is if I was using it to listen for my brand, I would train it around my brand and around my competitors so that ew, you can, what is that about? Uh, Yeah, so I had trained it around my brand so that it was just doing it accurately. You may have some keywords in your brand set or related to your brand that the internet considers negative. Like if I was Billabong and sick would be a negative keyword, but actually sick is a positive thing. So you can change it, you can train it to say sick is actually in my context, it's positive. So that would be one example. In this case, you could train it. And I guess a good example of training it would be, I don't know why I'm looking at this, to be honest. This is answered why Brazil is a spike. I don't speak Spanish, so I'm just gonna zoom out of that. Yeah, it's a really good it's a good question, but yeah, so around COVID, you train it to probably distinguish between like the positive, like the true positive and the true negative. So you'd have some situations where you'd have recovered, but you'd maybe have like feeling terrible they recovered. You'd actually want recovered to be a positive keyword, even though Social Studio would probably assume recovered is a neutral keyword. So that's one example where maybe you'd want it to, yeah, train it. But no, I haven't done it for this case. I like it being unadulterated by me to give it my kind of thing. Okay, cool. So here's at the top, we've got the gender 25 to 34 is the top, 45 to 54. So again, it's really 25 until 54 are the top three. So that's really the largest group. It always surprises me how big 55 to 64 are. You know, they're almost up there with the youngins, and that's quite an interesting demographic to have on Instagram. Sorry, on Twitter. Let's have a look into what they are saying. Volume trend. These are the 55 to 64-year-olds. Okay. Yeah, yeah. So Irene asked a question about when words like wonderful are used, and it's used in a sarcastic way, um, and it's classed as positive, but it should be negative. So that's a really hard one. And I think the thing I ask people is, if you ask 10 people to say if that's positive or negative, you might get different answers as well across those people. So you may get 9 out of 10 people that are like, yeah, that's definitely sarcastic. One's like, no, I don't think so. So it's really hard to know with sarcasm, and I think it's hard to correct sarcasm manually or override it. But what I would do is I would focus on the words that are definitely falsely picking up as negative or positive in a regular situation, not in a sarcastic situation. So if they're like, I just got a sick Billabong hoodie, or I can't think of an example from my brand. Maybe like, um, yeah, I can't think of one. I'll think about that one though. But yeah, it's a really good question around sentiment. The other thing I'd suggest is you use sentiment as an indicator, but it's not a hard metric, because you can't check every post. You can technically, but if you've got like this many, you don't. So use it as an indicative number. Oh wow, okay, so that's volume. Okay, okay, so it's just, yeah, okay, it hasn't given me a full reading. Anyway, forget that. I will have to come back to that. But what I can do is, again, I can zoom in. These insights actually go to a third-party provider. Um, that's why it wasn't able to give me the volume trend over the historical period. But what we can do is we should be able to see the top 50 keywords. Oh, I want to listen in for 55 to 64-year-olds. Great. So I think we're probably running out of time. If there's any other questions, happy to answer anything you have, or if there's anything you want to see for next time, very happy to show you. So just to wrap up, okay, so you should be able to see my screen now. So just to wrap up on what you should do as a brand to listen. So right now, what you should be doing is listening for your brand plus coronavirus. So that's a minimum that you should be doing, just so that if anyone does talk about your brand and coronavirus, you pick that up. You're the first one to know. Like, you don't want to be told by your mate that's like, oh, I saw this thing on Twitter the other day. Like, do you want to be that uninformed? So I would really advise you to listen for your brand as a priority. Build out a dashboard so that everyone knows where to get information about it. Make sure that you're tracking your publishing as well, so you can actually use publish macros and publish labels to track all of your posts and publish. And that way you can report on it after. You can be like, hey, CEO, our crisis response efforts are amazing. We got 10 million impressions on all of our posts related to COVID-19 related stuff. You should also make sure that your engagement is set up for both inbound and proactive. So if someone mentions your brand, you want to be able to engage with that carefully. Um, real-time post report. You can set this up as well, so you can get this real-time notification if somebody does talk about you, and also a weekly PDF dashboard. So those dashboards I was showing, those are a great example of something you can set up to go to people's inboxes every week. AF Digital does have a free social power on package that's available for customers that avail of the Social Studio free offer from Salesforce. There is a care package available. You need to talk to your account executive, and there are conditions that apply. If this is you, AF Digital are willing to come to the party with a very fast implementation to the value of $2,500. So we'll do that for free and get you up and running just with what I've described about the best practice to listen. Great, and that is the end, guys. So if there's any final questions, happy to answer them. Otherwise, this recording and all of our webinars are available on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and search for AF Digital, you will see them there. Great, thank you very much.